Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. Today, we're diving into the inspiring story of Meagan Price. 10 years ago, Meagan received a life-altering diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, followed 5 years later by an even more devastating terminal diagnosis. Told she only had 3 months to live, Meagan faced the unimaginable, leaving behind her husband, a 1-year-old child, her home, and a beloved community. But rather than surrendering to the fear, she turned it into fuel. Meagan embarked on a global journey, exploring any avenue that might offer healing and hope. Through these experiences, Meagan not only transformed her own life, but also developed a deep well of healing knowledge and practices. About 2 years into this journey, she was ready to share what she had learned with others and founded Healing Thyme, an institution dedicated to teaching transformative tools for healing and growth. Today, we're so fortunate to hear her journey, her insights, and how she is now empowering others to embrace their own paths to healing and transformation. So get ready for a really super inspiring conversation. Today's guest, here she is, Meagan Price. Hi, Meagan. Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you for coming from Utah. What part of Utah are you in?
I'm based in Provo, Utah, which is about 60
Well,
miles south of Salt Lake.
okay. Yes, I actually did stop there. My friend has a place in not Salt Lake, in the ski town.
Park City.
Park City, yes, and we stopped by where the Olympics went. I always think of Provo as where the Olympics were. What year was that? Wasn't that like in the
2001?
2001?
They just
Okay.
announced the 2034 will be here again, though. We're very excited.
Oh my God. I'll be 64 years old. Oh my gosh.
Well, gosh, you
Oh,
don't look a day over 20, so I think you're going to be golden.
why,
Just
thank
fine.
you. Why, thank you. No, it's great. Have you always lived there or did you?
I was born and raised here. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I did a trip there December of 2022, I think. I went there and I stayed with my friend in Scottsdale, and then we went through Sedona, and then we went up to Utah, and we stayed at a friend's place in St. George, and then we went to Zion, and I always remembered Zion National Park because that's where I got COVID. I'm like, God, I got a headache. It must be the altitude. My brain's going to be pulled through a straw. I'm just not feeling that good. And then I had the chills and all that. It wasn't, and I took Advil, and then, I had no idea I had it, but I just thought I had a headache. So that'll
Bummer.
always be tied. I look at those photos of me. I'm like, yeah, Nancy had the vid for the first time there. So, but what a beautiful, beautiful state to live in. Like all
It
that
is
beautiful
so.
red rock and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. And we went
And
to
Red Rock's
one.
the south. Up north, it's forest. Looks more like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very mountainous and
Yeah.
lakes and trees and
Yeah.
the variety of beauty here is just astonishing.
Yes. And I think we drove to Nevada too. The Valley of Fire, is that what it's called?
Oh
Oh, what
yeah,
is that part? Is that what it's called? The Valley
yeah,
of Fire?
yeah.
Beautiful. Like it's like
Beautiful.
totally prehistoric. It's like drop me
Yeah,
back in the dinosaur
that's
era.
exactly how it feels. Yeah, it's
Yes.
also hot
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, we were there
afternoon.
in December, so we were lucky. I couldn't
Oh, there you
imagine,
go.
or January actually. Couldn't imagine being there in the summer. Pretty hot. Anyway, we digressed. So that's where she's coming from. I'm in Michigan, of course, and we have a really great podcast in store for you. As I said in the intro, Meagan was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she was given a terminal diagnosis, and she has since overcome that. And she's going to talk about how, that diagnosis might have shaped her life and how she led into all these amazing healing modalities. We were talking about it before we hit record. Some of her trainings include Qigong, Ayurvedic training, Reiki. I didn't know there's 7 levels of Reiki, which she's certified and trained in all of them. One of which she uses, which we'll talk about at some point, is the Holy Fire. I had talked about how I was certified in 2 levels of Reiki and I just need to go to the next level. But it's amazing, all these, sound therapy, breath work. Oh my gosh, hello. You're a toolbox of these amazing therapies. And you've traveled the world to kind of learn about how to heal yourself. And in turn, now you're using that, what you've learned and what you've experienced in your struggles, to help others and train them in a lot of these modalities as well. Can you share your initial reaction and journey following your multiple sclerosis diagnosis 10 years ago and your subsequent terminal diagnosis 5 years ago? Is that still the right time frame? Because I know your son is like 6 years old now, and it said you had a 1-year-old baby at home. Okay.
Of course, yes. So when I was 21, which was now 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS. It came from just being, we were outside on a cruise and I got too hot and my whole body went numb. And at first I was like, it'll go away. I don't know, go to the doctor. Everything's going to be fine. And eventually I was just like, maybe I should call like my GP. And we went in. My general practitioner was like, yeah, so this is a neurological thing. You have to go, get diagnosed. And I was like, okay, this is something more than I was expecting. And so when I went and got diagnosed, at the time, I didn't even know what MS was or
You were so
why it was
young.
such a big deal. And in the first appointment, they were like, be prepared that in 10 years, like, you won't be able to walk.
Oh
And be
my God.
prepared that this is what this is going to look like. And I was like, okay. And at first, I was like, this is not going to be a big deal. I'm going to take the medication that they recommend and I'm just going to move on with my life. And for the most part, I did. Over the course of the next 5 to 6 years, lost like the ability, just the way my hands would like write letters. I had to relearn how to write. Or to use scissors. I love to craft and could no longer use scissors the same way. So I had to stop and I had to relearn. Similarly with like even like walking, like there was a point where I lost the ability to pick up my quad muscle. And so I had to relearn how to do that. And it was a process and it's a journey. And your brain is amazing. Like it's very capable of relearning new ways to do things, but it was a challenge. And the fatigue and the pain that comes with all of that was a constant part of my life. And then the medication that you're on, they tell you at the very beginning, they're like, you have a chance of contracting a secondary disease we're very concerned about because the diagnosis of that is a terminal diagnosis. About 5 years ago, I was in the doctor's office and I was telling them about a symptom that I had, and they were like, okay, we need to get you tested immediately. Suspect that you have PML, which is the name of the secondary disease. And they were like, this is what's going to happen. You have probably 3 months to live.
Oh my God.
Because the PML it passes through your blood-brain barrier, the virus, and begins to eat your gray matter.
Oh my God.
And when the gray matter's gone, I no longer can maintain a steady heart rate. I can no longer take in oxygen. I can no longer,
Wow.
all these other things that happen when your brain begins to dissolve. And so was facing down at the time, my son was 8 months old and I
Mm.
didn't know how to face that. I didn't know how
Mhm.
to face leaving behind this son that I adored and a
Mhm.
husband I can't get enough of and a life and a home and a family and a job. And I just, so I wasn't ready to accept that. So I began to do research and to study into anything and anyone that said they would give more time, which means I ended up in a lot of like weird basements with some, you know, crazy ladies just sharing things. And then I was like, yeah, 100%, I'm so into it. And it means, it also means I ended up in some spaces that were beautiful and some places that were scary. And I ended up traveling the world as I've collected modalities and studied and studied and studied. And about 2 years into my own healing journey, 6 months post the secondary diagnosis of PML, they rescinded the diagnosis. They were like, it's
Mm.
clearly something else. Otherwise, you'd be dead. And so it's got to be something else. Okay, great. And then they didn't reclassify that diagnosis because I was getting better. And about 2 years into my own healing, I suddenly had collected all of these modalities and was so excited to begin to help others. And I continue to study and I continue to teach and I continue to do sessions on other people. And that's what I'm doing now. The physical transformations I have experienced through these modalities have been transcendent. Besides, obviously, rescinding the original terminal diagnosis, at the time I had 23 lesions in my brain from the MS, and
Wow.
now I only have 9.
Wow.
And I mean, like, I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, right after I had had my baby in the hospital. Actually, I was still in the hospital. I don't know why they thought now was a great time to diagnose you with that. And now that's not a thing anymore. I just don't have it anymore,
Oh
which
my
is cool.
God.
And things like, I mean, just like I had my son at an emergency C-section because my blood pressure was too high. And now my blood pressure is so low. They're like, "Ooh, could you stand up while we take this? Why is your blood pressure so low?" And my resting heart rate dropped 20 points. Those are the things that are easy to show you because I can show you the MRIs. I can show you, like, this is what it used to look like, and now it looks like this. And this is like, it's actually working. It's doing things. But I can't show you how happy I am. I can't show you, like, my resting pulse before was anger and fear and aggression and just running, beating the pavement. And now my resting pulse is peace and joy and
Mm.
acceptance and compassion. And it's so wonderful. This is being here now, getting to teach that to others and help others on their journey is so fulfilling.
Mhm. Mm. So you went all over the world, study all these different modalities or learn ways to heal yourself because you just want to just give me more time. You have this precious, amazing bundle of life from God in your arms. I mean, I can't imagine facing the prospect of losing
Yeah.
your life and not being able to see this little bundle grow up. I just lost a friend to cancer and she had to leave. I mean, she held on a long time. She left a 9-year-old,
Mhm.
she had to struggle with that. So where were some of these places? I'm just curious, like in the world, like I can see you like maybe going to back like healers in like the mountains of India, or did you go to
I mean, it is
Bali?
a little bit like that.
Yes. Yeah. I want to
100%.
hear
Like
some of your
that first
stories.
reading Doctor Strange when he's like traveling everywhere, just looking for,
Yes.
it was a little bit like that.
Yeah.
And so some of them, the modalities I found, I actually first found here in Utah. And then I
Hmm.
was so excited about them. I've traveled just every time I go somewhere, I'm excited to learn new things. And so I mean, my heritage comes from very Celtic in origin. And so lots of
Mm.
the places I went to study were, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England,
Hmm.
and just because I'm so enthralled by that, all over the United States. And I've studied with so many tribes and so many different healers here in the US. Also, I mean, China, Japan, India,
Wow.
Mexico. I'm heading to Finland here in October to study under the Northern Lights with a shaman, which I'm very
Oh,
excited about.
amazing.
And so I'm just kind of a little bit of everywhere, and with the intention of continuing to do that. This
Mhm.
because every culture has some version of this, some
Mhm.
version of healing or shamanic practices or medicine wheels of where we see the energy and tapping into that. And so finding out and seeing all the commonalities, that's so much fun. It's so much fun to see all of the how it's so similar. It's even though everyone's got a different word for it, how it's so similar. And that includes studying, I mean, like studying to be like a Taoist priest and to be a Christian priest of like understanding all of the different versions of religion and how the religion is
Mhm.
tapping into it too. So it's not just one-sided. It's so multifaceted.
Mhm. It's amazing how all these places and have this history of the culture and the wise people and everything that's passed down, from the Celtic to like maybe Indian tradition, Japanese, just how it's like the wise people, how it's passed down. And we kind of lost it in this Western world thinking
Mhm.
that, oh, it's just the medical institute where we need our medical, like if you break your arm
Yes.
or you get in a car accident, you do need Western medicine. But now it's become, oh, here's a pill, here's chemo, here's all this. But then, and we look at all these other things as alternative, they've changed it into
Mm.
alternative, but there's so many like in the last 100 years where these things actually work. There's
Yeah.
energy healing, there's herbs, there's plants, there's so many things that they've done for eons that have helped, heal so many people and keep people, working with our spirits, working with our ancestors.
And I mean, I say that all the time. At Healing Thyme, we talk about that
Mhm.
we are integrative wellness, is that
Mhm.
please continue to see your Western medicine doctor.
Absolutely.
Don't have a heart attack and call me. Like, right? Don't please continue to see your therapist. Talk therapy is so
Yes.
beneficial. And
Mhm.
it's amazing. I talk about Western medicine as like they're the bandage. I mean, like if you are in the throes of deep depression or a deep panic attack, right? They are the bandage that's going to stop the bleeding. You have to stop the
Absolutely.
bleeding. And
Mhm.
then
You go
what
to
we
the
do with
root.
healing, the holistic side is we want to look at why. Your body, my body is a great example. My body could have shown up in 1,000 different ways, right? It could have shown up as like your friend cancer. It could have shown up as uh, other autoimmune disease, arthritis.
Yeah, I
It
have
could have shown up
this.
as any of these things.
Yep.
Why
Yep.
MS? Yeah. Why
Vitiligo.
MS? Why? Yeah. Why
Yeah.
cirrhosis? Yeah.
No,
Why?
it's vitiligo.
It's really hard to see that.
It's like white. It's just like
How
I'm dark right now.
beautiful.
So yeah, it's just really on my I have a little on my elbows too. Yeah, it's just this is my thing, but it doesn't like shorten my life. Luckily, I'm like,
No,
okay, yeah, it's
no.
aesthetically, but it's not going to shorten my life for,
I think it's aesthetically beautiful, but
thank
I
you.
think that, I mean, that it's why? Why is your body showing up that way? So
Mhm.
once we've got a handle on like the Western medicine, which they're doing such a good job at, becoming aware of the why. But for me with MS, the why was fear. I was so trapped in the need to control my
Mm.
life, trying to make myself worthy and enough. And it literally stagnated the chi in such a certain way that the MS is what took hold. I was so in throes of self hatred. I hated myself so much. My brain convinced my body, my immune system, that part of me was not me. That's what autoimmune
Mhm.
diseases are.
Mhm.
Your immune system begins to attack itself because it can't identify itself as you.
Mhm.
That's what's happening. And so, right, whether that's lupus or it's MS or it's arthritis, part of your brain is so powerful. That's what's happening, is that you've convinced yourself that. And so unwriting and rewriting that, for me, it was self-hatred and that fear of not being enough. And unwriting that has led to, like, right, the reharmonization
Mhm.
and the cultivating of new things, which has been beautiful.
Mm. And you talked about the energy, the chi in the body, and that's what like acupuncture does to help things moves around. And you had mentioned amongst your huge, impressive range of training and certifications, the modality of Qigong, you said is like one of the most important, one of the most beneficial. Can you explain how that's used in the healing energetically and physically?
Yes. So even though that I've like traveled the world, and like I said, everyone has some version of healing, shamanic healing, or every culture has something like that. Medical Qigong, I call the mother modality. There are very few practices that are being practiced, especially here in the US, right, where so much of our heritage and our traditions have been lost in the healing world. We're really kind of the melting pot of those as well. I've yet to come across a modality that has not been rooted in Qigong. Reiki, we talked about Reiki. Furi Sensei studied Qigong in the mountains of China in Tibet for 30 years prior to his development of Reiki. Ayurvedic practices less. Ayurvedic practices stem even to the same timeline, right? We're talking about 6,000-ish years ago is when we begin to see these practices. Ayurvedic and Qigong practices, I call them the mother modalities. They are so Qigong is so powerful because it is a complete modality. And by that I mean that there are 3 pillars to any holistic healing practice. And having one or a modality or a tool that will do one of each is super important. So the 3 pillars are purging. We're ridding ourselves of toxic energy. Tonifying, adding the good stuff back in, adding right the highest light, the holistic, the lightest part of it. And then regulating, making sure that all of our parts of our body are regulated so they're all functioning at the same brightness. Purging, tonifying, and regulating. Most modalities are one or two of these. So sound therapy is a great example. This is largely purging. Some excellent practitioners make it regulating. When I do sound therapy, I uh, inject Reiki into it. So trying to add that tonification piece to make it a complete experience. But sound therapy itself, the vibrating of the instruments, is a purging technique. Reiki is explicitly tonifying. It is adding in the good light. It's 528 hertz. It's flooding your body with unconditional love. It's tonifying. Regulating breath work is hugely regulatory. Foot zoning, very regulatory, bringing you back to homeostasis, bringing you back to zero. And so the three pillars are great and so beneficial, but you need one of each. Medical Qigong is all three. You cannot do it without doing all three. It's purging, tonifying, and regulating over and over and over again, every single day, over and over and over again. And you think you're done, and then there's another layer, and you keep going and going and going. It comes the complete blend of mind, body, and spirit, where it's not just right your physical, it works on your physical structure. And that's where you start, is like changing your posture and how your posture is supporting those organs and their functions. And then, you work into the intercepting karma and how our body is working that way from a karmatic standpoint. And then even more into like, the breaths and the colors and the light and the energy, and then into like guiding the mind. We would say that the mind guides the chi, and the chi guides the blood. That all three of these pieces are so integral. And the depth of training is also what I love from a Qigong standpoint. I am in my doctorate program. I'm working towards a doctorate in medical Qigong. It'll be a
Wow.
6-year
I didn't
program,
know
and it's
that.
been amazing and it's
Wow.
beautiful. But and even still, like I'm there and I'm like, I'm going to have to start again. And I'm going to have to retake these classes because you're never done. There's more and more and more and deeper to go, and more to read, more to study. And I really enjoy that there is framework around that. And so I really appreciate that as well.
Mm.
So that's why
Well,
it is certainly one of my favorites. It's also where I've experienced the most tools that I take away, and it's just so connected to everything else. That's why I say it's some other modality. It's stem everything else kind of stems from it, which is great.
and that's what you're doing. You're going to start a certification of medical Qigong. I did, even though you told me how to say Qigong.
It's QI says chi in
Right.
Chinese.
Qigong. Yeah.
So
Qigong.
qigong. The word qigong means chi or energy, work.
Right. Well, that
Gong
makes
meaning work
sense
or
now.
skill.
Yeah. Qi.
Yep. Uh, yes. I am starting a course. This is the foundations course. So this is foundations, which is taught in 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, for self-transformation. And it is all the tools that you would need for your own self-transformation, which is
Mm.
amazing. It's a course that I think everyone should have, because instantaneously you're going to leave with tools to purge, tonify, and regulate your own body.
Mm-hmm.
And every time, and it even gives you like a whole new paradigm and ways to think through problems that are coming up. And the great part about it is that the exercises and the movements, like when you see
Mm-hmm.
someone doing Tai Chi in the park, you're like, well, those movements don't seem like they're much exercise, but they are, and they're changing, they're
Moving
transformative.
energy.
Yeah, it's this movement, this slow and
Mm-hmm.
easy movement that we're all trying to reinject back into our lives, right? We're trying to reintroduce this concept. How many of us are running around stressed out of our minds and panicked, and we've got overwhelming things going on in our lives, and we're looking for the way to slow. Even the way we exercise is kind of aggressive. Run on the treadmill for 13 miles, or I'm gonna, like, how much can I deadlift in a single go? Okay, well, that's like really intense. So qigong, which Tai Chi is a branch of martial qigong, which is why I mentioned that.
Mm.
This slow movement, and even like the cultivation and of every piece of you. It's really beautiful, especially with our world where the diagnosis of ADHD is excelling and accelerating, and depression and anxiety, and the inability for our minds to stay focused. In Qigong, I have taught a number of Qigong classes. I have also done a number of Qigong sessions, and the reason that Qigong is another reason I love it is because there are so many pieces to keep your mind focused on it when you very first start, that I mean, like, the ADHD is no longer a problem. The anxiety and letting your mind fall asleep at night is just no longer a problem because you're so focused on, I'm going to stack my ankles and I'm going to do a Kegel and lightly close my anus at the same time. Am I doing that? Is it too tight? Am I okay? Okay. And then I can sink even deeper and deeper. The pieces and how it's taught is stacked up on that is really kind of cool, how it slowly and surely erases those things. And yeah.
Pretty amazing. Pretty
Yeah.
amazing because you're doing such slow and, movements. I have seen some women, they're doing some, and it just seems so beautiful, feminine, like back to our,
Yeah.
back to our ancestry where she's sitting and she's just doing these beautiful movements in her meditation. I can
Yeah.
see how that, it's just,
It's
yeah.
just, and allowing the flow, yielding to that,
Mm-hmm.
surrendering to it
Mm-hmm.
is a whole journey. And learning how to surrender to it is even more something that I'm still working on. I mean, this is the best part about teaching, is the reason I teach, the reason I do sessions, the reason I help others now is because that's the next part of my own healing.
Mm-hmm.
I show up and I do my exercises and my energies so I can show up as a conduit to learn from you, to learn from the clients, to learn from the next place, is because there's always more, and there's more learning, and there's more understanding, and there's more, and that comes from being able to stand explicitly as a conduit, and that comes from, again, the practices, which is great.
Allowing it to come and move through you into others.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So how do you integrate these practices when you work with your clients? I mean, you have so many different modalities. So do you do a mixture of them? I mean, you've got so many. I saw your room with all your your
I know.
healing room
We have
and all
all the
your
things.
crystals. Yeah, the
Yep.
gong.
And we do. We have all the things here. And it is really daunting. I will tell you that is one of the things that when clients come to Healing Thyme, they're like, I was overwhelmed by your website. I don't even know.
Know where to start.
Which is why, so on our website, the first thing we offer is an intuitive healing. You don't have to choose which modality is going to work best for you. You come, and we kind of use, it's well over 100 modalities that we are practiced in here,
Yeah.
and that we kind of create a brand new experience just for you. And we use multiple different pieces to kind of create a special piece for you. But that's not for everyone. Healing Thyme, when we very first started, I started it with my husband. We started with the understanding like that, okay, this is not for everyone. I'm in Utah County. This is a very religious part of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Mormon.
not going to be for everyone. Not everyone's going to be open to like, so we're going to come and we're going to breathe out the cancer of your body. Like, that's not going to be for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to meet people wherever they were. That's actually what started the whole modality collection,
That was my next
was that
question.
I
How did
want,
you start?
yeah, as it started because I was like, okay, some people are going to be like, I could sit for a sound bath, or I had done an insight timer. And so like meditating for 20 minutes feels like that's important. Or I did a breath work session, and I think breathing more oxygen in my body because the air here is polluted, and that's helpful. That's beneficial to breathe more oxygen. And so the variety of trainings came from wanting to meet our clients wherever they are. And so
Mm-hmm.
some people come to us because they're like, I know what breathwork is. I've heard of breathwork. I watched a TikTok on breathwork, and I feel comfortable coming for that. Some people are like, my girlfriend dragged me to a sound bath, and it was the most transformative experience. I want to come back for a sound bath. Some people are like, I have heard the word Reiki hundreds of times, and so let's try a Reiki session. But so people on our website can choose individual sessions if they know or they're excited about that. They
Mm-hmm.
also cannot, and that's okay too. And just let us kind of go from a more shamanic practice of just like, we'll be intuitively guided to whatever's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we are an educational facility, every time you come, whether for a session or a class, you leave with a new meditation, a new tool,
Mm-hmm.
and explicit visuals, exercises, movements to amplify those tools to help you in your current stage of healing, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So standard practice, unless somebody really knows, okay, I want to do breath work, I want to do practice. And like you said, you have over hundreds that you
Yeah.
use. Can you go through, because I'm just so fascinated with all these modalities, just some of them, some of the different tools and techniques that Healing Time offers to help change their lives, and maybe a story of transformation of one of your clients to pepper in there.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with the transformational ones because they're so
Okay.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny how this story came about. I got a phone call just last week from a gentleman who apparently is friends with someone who came in for a single session. I have a lot of clients who come in for 1 session. I have some clients who have been coming to me every week for 3 years. So it's kind of like the wide breadth of things. Apparently, this gentleman came in for 1 session, and he came in, I honestly don't know who the client is. I can't even remember. I mean, but apparently he came in for something else entirely. He didn't tell me what he was working on or what he had to have worked on. We just kind of did a little short intake, and then he got on the table, and I was guided by the chi alone. I'm watching where the energy is stagnating, where it's pooling in your body, and we just began to clear it. We purged his whole body, tonified, and regulated his body. Apparently, after the session was done, I told him about stagnation in his shoulder, and I said, "Have you torn your rotator cuff or had a surgery here?" And he was like, "Yeah, I had a surgery there on my shoulder a year ago." And I was like, "Okay." And so I mentioned it during the session of like, we cleared some of the things there and we moved on to talking about other things in his body. So then cue forward to the last week. Apparently, whenever the session happened, this guy calls me and he's like, "So you healed my friend's shoulder." I was like, No, I didn't." But I'm sure that he came for a session or something. And he was like, "Yeah, that apparently he came for 1 session and you like healed everything." I was like, "Oh, whoa, we've got to correct some of the language there, but okay." And so he was so excited about coming in. And I was like, "I don't even remember working on anyone's shoulder recently." He's like, "Yeah, it was like a month ago and he was in all this pain and now his shoulder's all better." I was like, didn't work. And I told him, I was like, "I think maybe I'm happy to help you, but I think you're maybe talking about a different healer because I haven't worked on anyone's shoulder." So, I mean, like things like that. And it happened
Wow.
in a single session. He's never been back to me.
Wow.
It's just kind of a funny thing. What are some of the other more powerful ones are I work a lot on geriatric care, cancer specifically. I do a lot of cancer work. And some of that's just like making them more comfortable, easing them into like end of life care, which is a journey. But one of my favorite ones that's now 3 years, 2 years ago, I was working with multiple geriatric cares of just like end of life care, hospice cares, and I was fired from 4 different clients within like a 2-week period. And I was like, "Okay, I don't want to do any more geriatric cares. It's really hard on my ego, and I don't know why I keep getting fired." And I kept getting fired because they were getting better.
Oh my
They were
God.
looking for end of life, and I was like, "Okay, I can understand that we were ready to be done." And I'm over here like, suddenly their oxygen rates are up and their heart rates up and they're walking around now instead of just being bedridden for the last 6 months. And so then I got fired. I was like, that's okay. I can understand that. So those are maybe some of my.
Individual clients or from a facility that you were
They were
working at?
individual clients where family members had contacted me, and
And they
it was
wanted to
interesting
go
because I
and
usually,
you they
yeah.
wanted to go and you made them
They
better.
wanted to go, and that's why they hired me
Mm.
originally. They were like, "Can you help just bring comfort as they're at those end of life stages, there's usually so much pain and
Oh
there's so much
God, my
just
dad died.
discomfort." And so they were like, "Can you come and bring more comfort?" And I was
Mhm.
like, "For sure." And the energy
Death
is so
doula?
great
Are
at
you a
that.
death doula? I know there's people that are.
No, that's not, and it's
Mhm.
not even what I specialize in. Because
Mhm.
again, the death doulas are there to help you through the death period, and
Mhm.
what I'm doing is making them better, which is
Yes.
hard.
Yeah.
And so less like
Ugh,
it was a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, those
you're
are
too
maybe some
good.
of my favorite. Yeah, those are maybe some of my favorite stories. But there are all kinds. So in Utah, we have an epidemic of opioid abuse. Just
Mm.
just
Oh, I
is,
didn't know that.
which is a challenge. I remember one of the very first clients I ever worked on once I started working on clients came in, and at the end of the session, I asked, like, "Show me anything that's not supposed to be there." I was so new to practicing. What I visualized was just this gunk at the top of his body, and so I began to pull it from his fields, and I was like, "I don't know what this is, but I'm being shown it, so I'm just going to clear it." And when he came back to the space and he opens his eyes, he sits up, and he was like, "I have never felt this light. I've never felt so painless. I've never felt so
Mhm.
good." And I was like, "Wow, this stuff is working. I'm loving it. That's great. This is what I want to share with the world." And so I get him up. We do our outtake. We walk him out of the room, and he's not 3 steps from my doorstep, and he collapses. And I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to call 911." He's like, "No, there's just my I in so much pain." I was like, "Okay." Upon further investigation, he had been taking an opioid in excess for years and years.
Mm.
And what I had cleared was the opioid.
Mm.
And the feeling of that lightness, but the second he stepped out of my space,
It came
I
back.
have to confront, right, the pain. So we brought him back and we put it back into his body and slowly begin to clear it from his
Oh,
system
yeah. So it was
instead of
almost
doing it
like
all at
cold
once.
turkey. Got it. Wow.
And so part of it was just that, at the very beginning, I was like, I have all these cool skills that I can totally remove this. And I did it without thinking that this was going to affect anybody later. And it totally did. And so, I
Well,
mean, yeah.
yeah. At least you had recognition. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. This is what it was.
Oh,
And then
this
you
is what I
just did it
want.
slowly.
Yeah.
And then now is he light and
He's
free of
been, as
opioid?
far as I know,
Mm-hmm.
when we finished clearing it from his system, he hasn't used opioids in the last 3 years, as far as I know,
Mm.
which has been great.
Oh,
And
that's
finding more
wonderful.
and more of that ability to like tap into that space that I need to be high or I need to be drunk or I need to be,
Mm-hmm.
you can get there without, right? I cultivate that in my own body. I can cultivate that through breath work, or I can cultivate that through the energy work.
Yes.
And I can tap into that space anytime I want
Yep.
with a clear mind and be able to control my body. And I don't have to serotonin dump and then spend the next month rebuilding that ability to
Mm-hmm.
make myself happy right again, which is
Mm-hmm.
great and it's wonderful. And so it's a beautiful piece to that.
There's so many ways that you can get that feeling. Like I've done ayahuasca and twice, 2-night ceremonies each. And it was pretty amazing. It was really
Yeah,
great. But I've gotten that way with breath work just from breathing.
100%.
And I don't necessarily feel called. I'm glad I got to, work with that plant medicine, the spirit of, the Aya,
Yeah.
Mama Aya. She's beautiful and amazing. She's always with me. But then I find some people almost get addicted to, like,
Mhm.
I've done ceremony where they go every month. I'm like, I couldn't imagine drinking that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
but they become addicted to going back and forth with that. What do you think about something like that?
So I actually teach classes on this of like if
Mhm.
you have the intention of journeying in any form with whatever medicine you feel called to do. And I actually work with a number of guides and shamans because the part that's
Mhm.
often missing from those experiences is the integration.
Mhm.
You've now learned, and that because the medicine, that's why we don't call it medicine, right? The plants or the things that you're taking, anything you're
Mhm.
putting into your body from here is not healing. It's not doing the work for you. It is
It's that
illuminating what it could be like.
mhm.
And so then your job is to do the work. You have to do
The
the work.
integration's
You got to
important
integrate it
afterwards.
afterwards.
Mhm.
And if you're not, or you don't have the tools to, right? If I don't have the tools to purge old patterns, bring the light to the new patterns, and then regulate the rest of my body that still needs to be healed, okay, I'm going to be stuck in the same patterns. And I go back and I journey over and over again because
Mhm.
it feels like I'm learning new things when in reality I'm learning the same lesson over and over again and not integrating it. So for sure, I think that journeying can be a great and it's a beautiful cheat code that the guides, right, like grandmother Aya are beautiful that come from those types of experiences, but being aware that afterwards the work has to be done. And I
Mhm.
don't think that journeying monthly is a great thing. I think that being aware is a great example. It takes your body 4 to 6 months for your liver
Wow.
function to come back from an Aya journey.
Wow.
So
Oh,
be aware of that and be
yeah.
aware that like, oh, I have got to, my body is taking a huge toll to do a journey like that. When you, right, I'm going to go do psilocybin, I'm going to go to shrooms. Your body dumps the serotonin. And I talk about
Mhm.
it like think of like a muscle or your stomach. Your stomach is a great example of like when I overeat and I overeat and I overeat, my stomach can suddenly hold more food. Ever hang out with a teenage boy and you're like, how are you eating 6 pizzas
Mhm.
whole? I don't, my stomach couldn't even hold that much. You're training your stomach to hold more stuff. Similarly with serotonin, when you do, or any of the neurotransmitters, right? When you are doing meditations and practices and exercises, you're growing your ability to hold more of that in your body. And so that when you go into a journey and the dump of serotonin, which is what causes the hallucinations and the lights and the colors and the
Mhm.
revelations and things like that, it drains the whole sac. Just like if I fast for 3 or 4 days, my stomach begins to shrink in size.
Mhm.
Okay. And so if that's what's happening, my ability to hold that much serotonin has to be rebuilt. And if every month you're going in and draining the sac, suddenly my resting pulse of where I can hold serotonin is less and
Mhm.
less and less. And then I just have, right? the integration part, those exercises to grow your ability to hold, just like right, the basics we were talking about. This is more anatomy than anything else. It has to be cultivated. You have got to cultivate that. And that is a journey, and an educational one you've got to study. And so I think that, again, I think journeying can be a beautiful thing. And if that's what you decide to do, one of the things that I teach in my class is that there are 3 parts to make it a journey versus just recreational. I'm going to go get high.
Right. Well, you want to do it in ceremony. I mean, I had an amazing shaman, facilitators, I can't never say that, Kurant, where the 6 hours of ceremony, just if you did the
Yeah,
ceremony, even without the IO, it would just been so beautiful. And the last time
absolutely.
I did it was horrible because I took it. I usually only take it once. I'm like, man, that's enough for me. I don't need the second call. I went up and
Yeah,
got it again because I was sober the whole time. I was awake through the
I
entire
love
ceremony. So
that.
I'm listening to ceremony. I'm like, well, I remember this part. Usually I'm seeing, the little kaleidoscopes by now, and I was awake. And then I finally, he came over and he put like a samba, how are you doing? He
Mm-hmm.
ended up putting a crystal on my stomach and playing like heart, what is it? Pink sapphire on me, and then playing a samba
Ooh,
on me. And then I dropped in as everybody was, as the ceremony was over, I dropped in. But my God, I was like torture.
yes.
And then like people, I've never thrown up during it. Because it's the Hawaiian, they derive it from Hawaiian. It's a little less harsh on the body,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
people are purging right next to me, and I turn away from the center because people are like, "You're supposed to like take everything around you." I am not. I'm like, there, she's puking and he's puking. I'm like, my head's going over here. It was interesting, but I haven't felt called to do it again. I think it's a great thing if you're called to it, but definitely do it in the right environment with a facilitator
With the facilitator,
that has
for sure.
studied, that has
And the
studied
study is years. It's
with
not just
shaman.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
don't
to
just go with someone
Perun.
that's like, oh, I did six eye journeys and
No,
I'm ready to facilitate. No, no. When you go to like Costa
a
Rica or
jungle
Peru,
Peru. Yep,
where the origin from, it's
and keep going back.
years of study
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
people are going to do to facilitate. That's the first piece. That
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a facilitator. If you don't have a facilitator, this is called getting recreationally high. That's
Oh,
great. I don't have to care. I don't have to
no,
care what
it's
you
a
decide to do,
sacred.
but
Yeah.
you got to call it what it is. And the other piece is that, so the intentions, when you
Mm-hmm.
go into a journey space, your intentions of what you are intending to get out of it are so important. Because one, we're trying to trigger our brain to the RAS, right? That the filtering system of your brain. We're teaching it to see what we are trying to find. And that's why you set intentions over and over and over again. And honestly, it's a solid month of intention setting prior to any journey,
Mm-hmm.
of like telling your brain that this is what I want to see, this is what I'm looking for, show me this. That's as much of the journey as anything you're going to put into your body. And the third part is that there needs to be a pre and a post. And by that I mean that like there is some sort of diet or restrictions of like, I'm going to cut things that are taking my chi. Eating
Yep.
excessive amounts of meat is causing you to lose so much chi. Drinking
Yep.
alcohol,
2 weeks before
right?
they give
Taking
you.
it's causing your body. You have to use so much energy to digest and consume those, and so cutting those and making that sacrifice in advance while you're setting these intentions,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's the post. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have integration, and there has to be lessons, and there has to be classes, there has to be study. That's the part that I do the most, is that I pair up with multiple guides and shamans, anybody that's hosting journeys really, and give, including in their pricing. It's just like, it includes 3 sessions from me. And we help with the actual on the table work of like helping them readjust the lessons that they found, and then giving them the tools. Giving
Mm-hmm.
them the tools so they can do the work. Because we don't have the tools and you haven't been given them from birth. You haven't been learning them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the tools we have are very limited. Of like, I listen to the insight timer every day. That's a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
How are you ridding yourself of the actual negative energy?
Yeah.
How are you alchemizing this? Do you have a tool for alchemization?
Mm-hmm.
If not, let's learn something. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
we do here, is that teaching.
So, how has your understanding of health and wellness evolved through your experiences and training?
One of the big ones is that the learning that the separation of that my physical body is different than my spiritual body. That's different than my mental faculties. That those 3 things are different and need to be treated differently has probably been one of the biggest developments of my wellness,
Mm.
was that every piece of my physical form is also spirit, is also mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's when all three of those are working together that I'm able to find true healing. Not just, right, coping or even just not progression, right, but prevention
Mm-hmm.
or even removal, right, going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably been one of the biggest lessons for me, and one I'm still learning, that there's still more to learn about that, about how to
Mm-hmm.
integrate more and more of my physical body with, and removing that separation between the three and allowing them to be one.
Well, because they are one, because really,
Yeah.
when you break down what we are, what is it? We're 99.9% space, and we're all, what we see in front of us is
Yeah.
actually an illusion. It's all
It's an
vibrating little
illusion.
dot, like
Yeah,
little
that's an
dots. So it's all
illusion.
tied together. We're just
And
pure
that,
energy with like
yeah.
meat suit around it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that, like, the meat suit is what we're so focused on, like, of the imagination that, like, I have 80 years, 90 years on this planet in this meat suit. When,
mhm,
okay,
when we're
the meat
eternal.
suit can be controlled just the same way
Mhm,
as, like, right, I would control my mind, or I would
mm,
when I'm like the spirit piece even of
mhm,
that, but that remembering that, and even because even as you say that, right, that I'm 99% space, that makes sense. I've seen what an atom looks like. I understand that concept, but in the Western mindset, I understand it with this.
mhm, mm.
I've
Yes.
learned that with this, and so, like, from a logical
Yes, yes,
standpoint,
yes.
I completely understand, and I'm like, yeah, I understand, but my body has forgotten.
I like that remembering.
Yeah, the journey of healing is only remembering. You don't
Mm,
ever hold a baby in your arms and think, gosh, they're too small to hold all the light that they are emanating.
mhm,
No, you don't ever hold a baby and think, if they could just be better at this, or better or more of this, or no, they come so perfect. And as a mother, I'll tell you that, like, when I hold my child even now, I'm like, wow, he is a complete person, even though he's only 6. And it's so perfect and it's so beautiful. If that's the case and he's that way, that means that at one point I was that way and
mhm.
I've forgotten how to be that way.
That's
And
beautiful.
I can return and I can
Yes.
become that again.
Yes. Oh, that's such a
And if you
that
ever
hit home. That's
forget, go
beautiful.
ask your mom. I promise.
Yeah.
Your mom remembers and she
Yeah.
knows what it was like.
Mm,
And that love for yourself is a huge piece, and finding that
mhm.
and finding the trust in that.
That's beautiful. I'm gonna take that with me. I gotta remember that. So, what advice would you give to others who are facing the similar health challenges that you had? Besides taking a lot of your classes and getting, healing from you, what would you suggest to them? I mean, of course, I wish I lived in Utah. I'd be at your house every week, or your
Yes.
facility. So, what advice would you have for someone that might be facing some terminal illness or some devastating diagnosis?
So often, what we're doing here is about getting out of your own way, setting aside that mind piece, that continuing striving. The greatest gift that the Western mindset has given us is that desire to be driven, to move forward, to charge forward, and to keep, like, that beating the pavement. It's actually was a great gift, because it means that we are constant searchers. We're looking for more, to do more, to be more. Don't give up that gift just because you've been given a diagnosis. Use that gift as a tool to spurn you into finding further healing,
Mm,
to unwriting the paradigms that you have been given and forced into.
mhm,
The freedom that comes from that, the safety that comes from that. I mean, I have had clients that I've lost to terminal diagnosis. I've had family and friends as well. But those that I've had the opportunity to help, I would rather end my life, even if my life ended now, right? Even if out of some crazy thing, whether from a diagnosis or I got hit by a bus, I would rather have it end this way now, where I've gotten to experience this peace and this love and this joy. It
mhm,
would have been worth it. And so seeking that, and for yourself, there's that thing that we say it as an idiom in America of, like, I'm not doing this for my health, right? And usually it's like I'm saying that in my business world, right? Where I'm not doing this project or this whatever for my own health. the reason the idiom's so funny is because that would insinuate the only things that we do unbidden are for our own health. And I don't think that's always true.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing things for our own health all the time. And if your actions, if every day are not for your health, then what are they for? Why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Find hope in that.
Yeah.
There's more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. How do you maintain such a positive mindset and continue to inspire others despite the challenges that you face? It's all the work that you've done to really discover yourself in all these other modalities. You've got such a positive energy and a positive mindset, and you exude that. And I can tell you're so passionate, your healing journey and what you have to offer others through all these amazing healing modalities that you now integrate into yourself and use with others.
Well, I mean, I think that you, first of all, note that you caught me on a really great week.
Oh,
I just came through a huge death last week
I'm
where,
sorry.
it was just heavy of like, and when I say death, I mean like the part of me that I let die.
Oh, yeah.
And so letting that part of like an old thought pattern or an old neurological pathway of like letting it die. And I just came through this on Monday. Today's, I think, Wednesday. Of
Wow.
like, oh my gosh. And when you come through a death like that on the
Yes.
outside, the
You're
next layer, it's like, yeah, it's just like birth. The walls start crunching in and it's really painful. The space that you're living in is literally getting smaller and you're staring at an opening that is not big enough for you to come out of. And you're like, okay, it's happening. And it's really stressful and it's painful and it is more emotional. But the second you're through, oh,
Mm-hmm.
is this what space looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what breath actually feels like? I remember the first death I came through on this journey. And the next day, my son did something, whatever it was, funny, hilarious. And I laughed and I was like, oh my God, is that what joy feels like? Oh, I've been calling this the wrong thing. Oh my God, that's really painful. And so, I mean, one, you've caught me at the right time. And two, because I have come through a number of deaths already, right? I've been now practicing this for 5 years, where each time there's more and more of that space. And so it makes the hard times, because there are still hard times. I still have mountains of work to do. Oh my gosh. But I know that the next death is going to feel even better. And the one after that, there's going to be more space, more light, more joy, more of everything. So it makes the times when I can feel that death or I'm feeling that easier because I know that I just have to keep doing the work. And the skills don't change. The tools that I have, even though I've continued to study, I said this in the beginning to you of like, I've studied all over the world. And what's funny is that all the tools are actually the same. Everyone's using the same tools. It's just different words that we're using to describe the exact same thing. The tools haven't changed. The tools are so easy to learn and gather that every day I wake up and I do the exact same skill set. I do the exact same set of purging, tonifying, and regulating every day, knowing that it's bringing me a little bit closer to that death. Because on the other side, there is this positivity, this joy, this feeling of love and compassion and peace. And with that comes the physical healing, where maybe today the lesions in my brain are just a little bit smaller, or the pain in my body is just a little bit less. Or today I'm able to experience joy if I've been on like SSRIs, right? For the first time a little bit more. And it comes from just the continue that again, like I said, it's actually kind of a gift, the Western mindset concept of like, just keep going, just keep pushing. It's actually kind of a great, beautiful thing, a gift to be given.
And allowing that space.
Yeah.
Space.
And the space.
To walk the fire. You're allowing yourself to walk the fire because on the other side is.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, like, it's amazing. Every time I come through death, it is like that first breath a baby takes where I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just so much space. And it's so much space. And I mean, there's a quote in Qigong where we say, you will go through 10,000 deaths in a lifetime. 10,000 deaths. Right?
Right.
And 100-ish years. It's like 100 deaths a year. It's exhausting.
Little
I'm only
deaths,
doing
big
like
deaths.
1,000 of those a year. I'm only hunting those down tenfold
Ugh.
because the space is intoxicating. People that, right, we talked about journeys a little bit here, about like endlessly doing journeys, or even we talked a little bit about opioids or alcohol that are endlessly doing those. It's like that, where it's invigorating to go and to find those deaths. I tell people all the time that my own journey is I'm on the hunt for the things that are hard. I'm looking for them. Every time I come across something, I'm like, this is making me really angry, or this is really hard at work. I can't deal with this point. I'm like, oh, win. I'm so excited. And I'm going to go tell this. I mean, right. Usually it's an employer or a friend where I'm like, oh, I'm going to go thank them because whatever this is that they've just turned up, I'm so excited to deal with. Because on the other side of that is more of this.
Mhm.
Yay. And so finding more and more ways to be that way and to find more and more of those deaths, those hard things are what we're looking for. When we get injured or have a disease, that's what it is. It's the universe coming saying, deal with this hard thing.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's a gift. It's something to be grateful for.
Beautiful. So how can people work with you? Where can they find you? Your website? If you could give us any of your social handles. Of course, I'm going to put a lot of it in the show notes because you have so many accolades. But if you can share, I know you shared some of the things that you have that you're working on that you're pretty excited about. Some of these new programs, certifications. If you could let our audience know, that'd be great.
Yes. So Healing Thyme Utah is our website, www.healingthymeutah.com. We would love to help you. All of our sessions can be done from a distance or in person. And so whether you live here locally or you live halfway across the world, we'd love to help and be of service. You can find us on Instagram and social media, where the handle is Healing Thyme UT, and we share tips and exercises and ways for you to help yourself. We also have coming up trainings. Medical Qigong Foundations 1 starts in September. It's a great course. It is being taught in person and virtually, so you can join no matter where you are. We also are doing a Reiki training that is done virtually and in person, which if that excites you, we'd love to have you join. We also are doing a work-life balance retreat come in November that is being released today. And so if you struggle with that and you're looking for new tools about how to have balance in your life, this is a great retreat to come to and come enjoy the beautiful mountains of Utah. And so you can find all of that information on our website and more reading, more education. And our blog is chock full of great tips on how to do that.
Wonderful. And I do love the aesthetics of your website.
Thank you.
Go on over and check it out and all the things that Meagan has to offer. Well, Meagan, this has been wonderful. I have one more question before we go. And I ask all these guests, is the name of my podcast. And I want to know from you what it means for you to live with an awakened heart.
I absolutely love the name of your podcast. It's so beautiful. An awakened heart. I think that the same way we talked about remembering, that word awakened indicates our ability to listen, our ability to allow our heart to lead versus forcing our mind to take control, to try and manipulate our lives. Leading with an awakened heart, leading with that open heart, brings peace and joy, and finding that first opposed to second, or whenever I have time, or whenever I have an awakened heart only comes with consistent opening.
Beautiful.
And so it's a beautiful thing.
Consistent opening. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Meagan, for joining us today. And I hope everyone goes and seeks Meagan out and all her amazing offerings. Like she offers pretty much everything that I've known about. Like you can find what you're looking at. And if you don't know what you're looking for, she'll intuit it in your first session and then build it around you. So thank you, Meagan. Appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.